Okay, Janelle, it's your time.
All right. I hope everyone can hear me. So my name is Janelle Lyons. Thanks so much for the introduction, Shali. And today I'll be talking about how you can easily create your own website using Omeka-S. So just as a brief overview of what I'm going to talk about today, first, I'll touch on the origins of this project. Then I'll go into speaking about what Omeka-S is. And the bulk of the presentation after that will be walking you through the basics of creating your own site in Omeka-S. Then I'll touch on at the end how to get started using Omeka-S if you decide that you'd like to try it for yourself. And then there should be plenty of time for some questions at the end. And as Shali mentioned, if you have questions during my presentation, just put them in the chat box and then we can address them all at the end. So as part of my internship, I was tasked with creating an Omeka site to showcase clips from the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, also known as SPOP, from their oral history interviews. And so really the purpose of this was, SPOP's clips are already, or SPOP's oral history interviews are already stored in the UFDC, University of Florida Digital Collections. But we really wanted to see if Omeka would be a good way for members of the SPOP team to showcase their oral history interviews by creating their own sites. All right, and so Omeka, it's a web publishing platform. It's used by libraries, museums, and cultural institutions to create sites with digital exhibits and collections. And on this slide, I just referred to Omeka generally because there are actually two iterations of Omeka. Omeka Classic and Omeka-S. And for this project, I actually started out using Omeka Classic first. We ended up going with Omeka-S, but I wanted to just touch on the two iterations, give the differences in case you decide that Omeka Classic might be a better fit for what you want to do for your project. And so Omeka Classic, it's really used more for standalone sites. You can only make one site with an Omeka Classic installation. You can't have multiple sites under one instance of Omeka Classic. There are more themes that tend to be more colorful if having that as part of the aesthetic element is important for you. But overall, it's really a good opportunity to showcase a single project. So if you don't see yourself using items that you have put on this classic installation for other sites, if you really just have one particular project you want to showcase and don't foresee using classic or Omeka in the future at all, classic would be a good option. For Omeka-S, it allows for more collaboration. Once you've uploaded or added an item to Omeka-S, as I'll show you later on in the presentation, you can use it on multiple sites under the installation. You can have multiple sites with Omeka-S, which is really great. And so really it's a good choice if you are maybe part of a department, for example, SPOP, and you know that you're going to want to, or you have the opportunity to create different sites and feature items on multiple sites. And so for SPOP, with their oral history interviews, Omeka-S definitely seemed to be the clearer choice because the oral history interviews that SPOP has can definitely be featured on different sites according to the different themes and different focuses of the sites. Right. So Omeka S does have some particular terms. And so I just wanted to take this time to briefly go over the terms that I'll be using during the presentation. So first is installation. And so this is your particular instance of Omeka S. So for example, I'm going to be using the, so I created a site with the SPOP installation of Omeka S. The theme is just the general design of your site, what it looks like. An item, that is what the site visitors are coming to see on your site. And so it's the information that you want to showcase on your site. An asset, that is a decorative element of your site. So think logos or just photos that you want to add to the aesthetic element of your site. An item set, and that's a group of items. You could see it as a collection of related items. A resource template, and this I'll talk about a few times during the presentation, because it can be really a little tricky to understand until you've seen it. But a resource template is just a preset group of fields that you take the time to make ahead of time, or properties that constitute the metadata for an item. And so you just put this group of fields together so that you already have in place the descriptors that you want for the items on your site. A property, that is, those make up a resource template. And so it's a field that can be used to create a resource template. So examples of properties are date, title, description, identifier, and so on. All right, and so now I want to go ahead and show you all my website just to give you a reference point as we talk about the process of creating your own site and look at the back end. All right, so we'll start from the top. So this is the domain name that was chosen for SPOP. That's featured in the URL, UF Oral History. This St. Augustine Civil Rights is the slug, the URL slug for my site. And so the slug really is just a shortened version of either the site or page that is going to appear on the URL. And here at the end is welcome. So that's the slug for this page, the welcome page, which is also the home page for my site. So underneath, you can see this gray bar. So this appears on my end because I have an account with this installation, and I've been working on this site. So if I click here, this will take me to the admin page for this Omeka installation. If I click here, this will take me to the site page for this particular site. Pages, if I click this, it will take me to a list of all the pages on my site. And if I click edit, it will allow me to edit the page that I'm on. Right. And so if I click this title of my page, it will take me back to the home page, which we're already on. And here in the navigation are all of the pages on my site. So I have 5. And so we'll just scroll down. So if you remember briefly, I talked about assets, the decorative elements of your site. So everything featured, all of the images featured on this page are assets. So there's the SPOP logo, there's 2 photos. These are HTML text boxes. And I'll show you the back end of how I was able to put all of this together. All right, and so I want to show you one page just to give you an example of what another page looks like. So here I have the title of the page, just an HTML text box talking about these clips. And then this grouping of clips is called an item showcase in Omeka S. And so I'll show you how I was able to do that from the back end as well. But for now, we'll click on a clip. So these are items on Omeka S. And so you can see the title of the item up top. Again, I made clips, video clips for the site. And so I uploaded the clips to SPOP's YouTube and provided the link. I'll show you how I did that when I added items to this installation. And so you can see the metadata for the item. Again, these are the properties. And this whole group of metadata fields or properties make up a resource template, which I created. to make adding items a bit easier. And I will go over that as well further into the presentation. All right. So to continue, I'll first talk about the visual elements of your site. So first we're going to talk about the structure. So this is the site admin, adding pages, and the navigation. So I'll click on this screenshot to take us back. And this is the site admin page for the site that I created. So this is where you probably want to get started when you're making your own site. So you'd add the title of your page here, the URL slug here. Again, that's just a shortened version of your title that would appear in the URL for your website. And then just a brief summary of your site. And so it's not required, but I think it's good, especially if you know you're going to have an Omeka S installation with several sites. That just helps keep everyone organized. Up here at the top is an I, and this just refers to the visibility of the site. So right now my site's public, everyone can see it if they have the URL. If I wanted to make it private, I would just click on the I and then hit save. And so now I also wanted to take the time that to say that this presentation is really meant to be more of like showcasing the basics of Omeka S, highlighting what I thought was particularly helpful when I created the site or my website. And so I won't necessarily be touching on or referring to everything that's shown on the screen. All right, so next we'll go to pages. And so this is where you would add the pages for your site. And so it's pretty straightforward. You go up here to add new page. And you would enter the title of your page, like the URL slug, again, what's going to appear in the URL. And if you want to add it to your navigation, how mine were appearing in that bar, you would just check the box here. So we'll come back to the pages section of the site and when I show you how I created a page in the back end. But for now, we're going to move to navigation. Right. And so this is important. This is where you can select the page that you want to appear as your home page. From here, you can also change the order of the pages in the navigation. So if I wanted to make this page appear before this one, I could move it around like that. If I wanted to have top level pages or parent pages and then second level pages, I would just move this page on top of the page that would be the top level page. And so it would happen like that. So hit cancel. All right. So we'll move on. And next we'll talk about the design of your site, the theme. So there are different themes available in Omeka S. Even once you've chosen a theme, you can customize that theme. If you're adding a logo as instead of just using the title on your site, if you wanted to upload an image, it's good to have an image that has text with the title of your site as well, because the logo, the image, and the title will appear at the same time. And I'll show you why you shouldn't be afraid to try out different themes in Omeka S. It makes it really easy to choose and land on what you like. All right, so this is the theme I chose for my site, the center row theme. So if we click edit theme settings, this is probably one of the most basic themes in Omeka S. I really wanted something basic and clean for the site that I created. And so there's really not too many ways to customize. Again, as I mentioned, for the logo, if you choose an asset, if you choose an image to appear as the logo or the foot or the header of your site, you want to make sure that it has text, because if you choose that, the title of your site won't appear. Right. So I'll show you all of the themes. Actually, I'll take the time to scroll down. So these are all of the themes that are on this Omeka S installation. And I'll go ahead and just change my site theme briefly to show you. The foundation theme allows many more opportunities to customize your site. And so you can see here, there are many more options if you want to have more flexibility in what your site looks like. Okay, so I don't want that to be the theme of my site. I want to go back to center row, which I chose beforehand. So I'll hit save. Okay, and then if you want to visit your public site in Omeka S, you would just click this here, the square with the pop-out arrow. And so you can see, even though I just changed the theme of my site and changed it back, it's still the exact same that it was before. So if you like the theme that you've chosen for your site, but you decide that you want to try out a different one just to see if it looks better, if you end up preferring your original theme, you can easily go back to your original theme, and any of the settings that you made when you were using that theme should remain. And so your site should look the same. And so that's why, yeah, you shouldn't be afraid to test out different themes to see what works best for you. All right. So next we'll talk about items. And so this really arguably is probably one of the most important parts about your site. And so this is what all of your visitors are coming to see. This is what you want them to engage with. So these need descriptive metadata, the items. I'll show you how you would add that to the item. For these, again, you would use the resource template. And so as a reminder, that's just a preset group of metadata fields or properties that you've chosen ahead of time that you decided that you want to have attached to your items. You can upload media, or in my case, I provided a link to the YouTube video for the media for the item. All right. And so here on the item page, you can see the items that I've added to this Omeka S installation. If I click up here to add new item, you can see the first thing they ask me for is the resource template. So again, this is the metadata, the descriptors that I need attached to my item. So I made one for the clips on this site called clips. So I'll go ahead and choose that. And you can see, again, the properties, title, description, date. The asterisk shows that they're required. So you can see the fields that I decided I needed to have completed for my items. So next we'll move to media. And so this is where you can upload media for the item. If you want to upload an image, for example. For this site, I had clips again. And so I clicked here to upload or to add a YouTube link, the URL to the YouTube video. I will say that with the videos, they're large files. When I tried to upload it, I got an error message. And so especially for the members of the SPOT team, if you want to feature videos from your YouTube, it's much easier to just go ahead to YouTube and put the video URL here in this box. I definitely recommend adding a title. You can see the shortened titles I have here in my history, because when you add an item, Omeka S automatically creates this media folder for the media that's attached to the item. And so just so you can keep straight which media is which, it's better to just have a brief title so that you know which item that is attached to. And item sets, again, this is just a collection of related items. If I wanted to add this to an item set, I created one for the site featuring the clips that I made, the St. Augustine Civil Rights Movement item set. I would just click that and it would be added to that collection of clips. So we'll hit cancel. We're not adding an item right now. All right, and so I want to show you what an item looks like after it's been added. So I would just click here on the item title. And so you can see the metadata now that it's been completed for the item. You can see it's part of the item set I created for the site, the St. Augustine Civil Rights Movement, and it's part of this site that I've created. And so again, what's great about Omeka S is that once you've added an item to the installation, you can use it on multiple sites. So I've used it on this site featuring oral histories from St. Augustine's civil rights movement. But for example, if SPOP wanted to create a site that had clips talking about segregation in the South, this item could easily be added to that site as well. All right. So we'll go ahead and move along. So next are assets. So sometimes I can see how if you're first using Omeka, it might be confusing items and assets, but really I think once you get started, you should be able to, the difference should be clear. So assets do not need descriptive metadata. Again, this is pictures, media used for more decorative purposes. So the SPOP logo, photos, and these have to be uploaded. So I'll show you the assets page in this installation. So you can see these look familiar. These are the photos that were featured on my homepage, and then the SPOP logo, of course. So if I click here to add a new asset, you can see, yeah, that's not like adding an item at all. It's very simple. So you just choose the file, and then of course provide alt text, and that's just the text that will appear on the page if the asset is having a difficult time loading. Great, so that's assets. And so next we'll talk about building a page. And so I think this probably might be the most intimidating part of creating your own website, but really Omeka S makes it very simple. I really didn't have much, if any, website development or coding experience before I started building this site. And I think my site looks pretty nice. And so I'll show you the back end of the pages that I showed you at the beginning of the presentation. Omeka S divides the pages, the elements of the page into sections that you can easily delete, add, move around, change the order, customize. And so I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like. All right. And so to navigate to these pages, I would just click on the site title for my site. If there were other sites on this installation, those would be featured under there. I would go to pages. And then we'll go ahead and click the edit pencil to edit or just look at the welcome page. And so this is the welcome page. So you can see assets, the HTML text boxes, line breaks for the flow. Again, another asset that I wanted to add, and it shows the orientation or alignment. Another HTML text box, line break, and an asset, and then one more text box. So you can see I can add new blocks to the page if I'd like. I can add another asset if I want. They automatically pop up at the bottom. If I click the 3 lines here and hold, I can drag it to change the order of where that appears. If I want to delete an element, I would just hit the trash can, of course. So it's going to show that in red. Just be sure to click save if you decide that you do want to save that change. If you click the trash can by mistake, you would just have to click this arrow to undo that. Right, and so as a reminder, this is the back end of my welcome page. And so I'll just show you what the front end looks like again. Great. Okay. So yeah, we're going to go back here, actually, hit cancel. And I want to show you this page, a Life During Segregation page as well, because it has this feature called the item showcase, which I really like. It's really easy to use. Again, you would just add it from this side of the page. And then you would add attachments. So really just add items that you want to be featured in the showcase. So go ahead and click there. And then the items appear here. So you can search for the item, you can filter, do a filter search. If you have a number of items on your installation and they're grouped in item sets and you know the name of the item set you want, you can select that here. And then just click and choose. You would hit apply changes to make sure that it appears there. And then of course you can also change how large the thumbnail is that appears in the item showcase, or you can also decide if you'd like to have the title of the item or the media title or no text at all underneath the item. And so again, as a reminder, this is the back end of this page. And I'll show you the front end again. Right, and that's the item showcase. So really not too bad, but process to build a page. So next, this is the last portion. I'm just going to talk about the descriptive elements. So on this slide, I'm really only just going to briefly touch on vocabularies. So here I would think of it as a guidebook of metadata fields that you may use to describe your item. And so I've included the definition from the Omeka S user manual on this slide, but these can be imported to your installation depending on what guidebook of metadata fields you need to describe the items that you want to feature on your page. And so I'll touch on this at the end of my presentation, but if you would like to use Omeka S, you do need to work with a librarian or a libraries employee. And so they would be able to help you with this portion. My supervisor, Shali, imported vocabulary to the Omeka S installation for SPOP, so I already had that. And so I briefly mentioned vocabularies because it's the vocabularies from which, or you would choose the properties or the fields for your resource templates from the vocabularies. And so again, the resource template, that's just a preset group of fields you take the time to make that have a list of properties that you decided that you want to have attached to your item that you want to have with descriptive elements for your item. And so I really think this is one of the most useful parts of Omeka S, especially because Omeka S allows for collaboration. If they're different users, they can add items and work together to create sites. And so if you have a resource template that's already put together, it can be used by different people. I can show you how there's ways to make different fields of the template required. And this is a screenshot of the resource template that I made. So we'll go ahead and look at it because I think seeing this really shows how powerful of a tool it can be. So this is the resource templates page. This comes automatically with the installation. This is one I created. I created both of these, but this I think is the one that's really most useful. So you can see here, this is an overview of the template that I've made. And so these are the properties, the metadata fields that I decided that I want to be shown with my item. So these are the fields that I would complete when I'm adding my item. So you can see most of these are required. There's a few that aren't. Those were, if I had time at the end, I'd be able to go back and complete those, but time didn't allow. And for these, you can see for this one, I decided that I wanted a different label because these are clips of oral history interviews. I wanted it to be clear to the visitor that this link that's attached to this metadata field is going back to the full interview in the UFDC. And so I changed the label there. And then for these two fields, I knew that I was going to put labels and URLs. And so I wanted it to be easy for the site visitor to just go ahead and click on the link and go to that page. And so I told Omeka S ahead of time, this is the type of data that's going to be in these fields. And so I just want it to be easy for me to complete. So if I hit edit resource template, I can show you. So again, you can see where I could change the order of these properties. If I wanted to add more properties to this template, I could choose here on the right. And then if I wanted to edit, and so this is a good example. This is one where this is the original label, and I decided I wanted an alternate label to appear on the site, and that's what I chose. Down here, you can see I checked the box that I need this to be required. And then of course I chose this data type that says I want it to, I want to have the possibility of putting a label and URL. So you just hit set changes to be sure that that is applied, and then hit save to change that. All right. Let me go back and then just show you what it looks like if I was adding it from scratch. So again, I think it might look kind of overwhelming with all of the different properties that are available here. These numbers are pretty large, but this is another part where you'd want to work with that librarian or library's employee to help get this set up, because taking the time to set it up front will save you a lot of time, and I'll show you. So you would just choose the label. That part is required or is optional. The class title and description are already here, and then you would just select from here other properties that you want to have in your resource template. So we're going to go back to items and add a new item just to show you the resource template in action again, now that I've talked about it in a bit more detail. So if you click here and click on clips, this is the resource template I created. So again, you can see the properties or the metadata fields that I chose ahead of time that I knew that I wanted to complete for the items that I add to my site. And so again, you can see the asterisk showing the ones that are required. You can see down here for these properties, again, I knew I wanted to have a URL link and a label so that I could easily click on it. And so these look different from the other properties. And there we have it. So here I'm going to hit cancel. So just to show you, if I want to add an item, and let's say I was just going to use a base resource template that's already in the installation, you can see there are a number of metadata fields. These might not even be all the fields that I want. There may be some others I want. And so if you have to go through this each time and choose from this list, it's just really not a good use of time. And it can cause the metadata to not be very consistent for the items on your site. So resource template, I definitely recommend taking the time to put them together. Will be very useful to you in the long run. All right. And so this last portion is item sets. And so again, just a collection of related items. I think when you have more sites and items, I think either you can use item sets in different ways, but at least for me, I knew that this would be a good way to have my clips organized so that when Spock's creating other sites, they know that the clips that I use for this site are all in this item set. And so if you click here, you can see information about the item set. So I just have a title and a brief description of what these items are referring to. If I click view items, then you can see all of the items in the item set. And so you can see the label up here showing that it is part of the St. Augustine Civil Rights Movement item set. And if I go back and I want to add a new item set, It's really pretty simple. Nothing is required, so you can complete the information as you see fit. For me, the title and description were sufficient. All right. And so I overall that was the presentation about how to create your own website. I hope that you all took away that Omeka S is a really easy, user-friendly tool. You really don't have to have too much coding or website development experience to make a good-looking site. If you do have any of that experience, it also allows for the flexibility for you to really make a nice site if you'd like to take the time to do that. And so if you've liked what you've seen and you decide that you want to get started using Omeka S, it is provided through a newer service, UF libdomains. And so, as I mentioned briefly before, you do have to have a librarian or libraries employee working directly with you on your project. And they would reach out to UF libdomains to get your domain name and your storage and have you set up with that. And so I wanted to share the sources that I used for the presentation, but also the sources I used when I was creating my site. So the Omeka S user manual is very helpful. The Omeka forum, that is a forum that has Omeka staff members and also Omeka users. And so they'll ask questions. I think it's really useful once you've really started getting involved with Omeka S. Like, for example, when I tried uploading a video and getting an error message, things like that you really maybe you wouldn't have experienced until you're actually using the software. The Omeka forum is really good for that, to see if anyone's had a similar issue as you. And then the Omeka screencasts are also very useful. So those are through Vimeo, and these are really great. As I mentioned, this presentation was just a brief overview of what I found to be really helpful. And the Omeka screencasts really take more of a deep dive into different facets. So they're whole videos that are devoted to resource templates, for example. So I would definitely check those out while you're actually creating your site. All right, and now we have time to go over any questions. I see we do have some, looks like there have been some messages in the chat, so we'll take a look. All right, I see GW has a question. Can you say something about how ownership works in Omeka? Can people besides listed owner modify assets, items? If Omeka can support a role-based approach to necessary rights rather than a specific user. So I do know that there are different levels of users or administrators in Omeka. And so I think there is the possibility if you, if you don't want anyone else editing your site, I think there are ways to ensure that that is the case. I don't know specifically. I think it's the person who set up, so the librarian or the library's employee who sets up the Omeka S installation with the UF libdomains. I think they're the base, they're the head admin. And so I think from there, you can make choices about who has certain rights and permissions. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I just want to add that there are different rights. So just as Janelle said, you can set it up based on your needs. If you wish to collaborate, you can give people more rights. But if you wish to have it stand alone or to have a specific person to take care of certain aspects, you can also set it up as a way like only this person can handle certain things. So there's different levels of the permission. I hope I answer your question. If we don't, you can comment. You can also speak up or to say. Go on. I think we have more questions. So Jenna,
please. Just have a follow-up. If you can transfer the head admin role to someone else, that's probably maybe more of a question for UF libdomains. I would guess no, because I think they want a librarian to be
I started the project. I think, I totally agree. Probably If anyone at the library technology services can answer this question, that'll be better. But my understanding is I started the project, and I think Janelle probably even remember. At first, I didn't think she needs certain rights, so I only gave her something like editor. I don't remember the exact name, how they call it. But then we realized she needs more permission, so I went back to give her more. I think right now she may have the same level of the permission I have. But again, there's some technical aspect to this question. So
yeah, and when I've looked in the admin portions of the installation, your name is still listed as the admin.
But my understanding is that nothing prevents you from assigning this whole project to another person to take care most of the stuff. So I don't see anything preventing. So just like Janelle did everything she wanted to do but yeah, while maybe she may be not the highest level, but she did all the things she wanted. Yeah, we got another question. Yeah, you can unmute yourself, Amanda, if
Hi.
that helps. Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, it would be easier just to explain it. But so I'm doing a digital literacy class. And so like I'm looking, based on what you said, it seems like it would be doable for me to, where I have these students, they have to do different, like they do a WordPress site, for example. Then they upload their multi-genre sites on a different public, usually site. And then by the end, they do a public final portfolio where all this stuff, like the transferability across web pages is huge for that. So I'm just wondering if you guys think that this is something, if I master, it's worth like, them being introduced to this one standard site. And then because it breaks down the properties so effectively, I feel like it would help them possibly understand like digital literacy more, the different elements. So I'm just curious what you guys think about that.
Based on what you told me, yeah, I think it sounds like it could be a good way. It could be a really good tool for your students. It sounds like it would make their, handling their projects and their sites a little bit easier. What do you think, Shelley?
Yeah, sounds like it's working, but if you want to play safe, I would suggest you reach out to any librarian you think can help you. You can reach out to me too, but there's also other librarian you may be very familiar with. So this librarian will work with library technology services to get your site start up and also test out the function you needed. So yeah, and also I would like thank libraries. Library technology services, they helped me to get started, like start the site. Then I can pass on to Janelle. She can finish the work. So they're really good.
Thank you very much. And that presentation was really helpful. Either way, like I could definitely use this site. So I'm really glad.
Thank you. Thank you.
Glad to hear it. Good luck. I see we also have a question from Melissa. You're welcome. And what I enjoyed most about this project, oh boy, so I really enjoyed working with Omega S. Again, it was really a pleasant experience. There were some issues I ran into when I was uploading a video and the file was too large and I had to figure out how to work around that. But I really just enjoyed working with the platform. Besides that, the actual site building, looking through the oral history interviews in the UFDC for SPOT, that is wonderful. There's so much information that I learned about the St. Augustine Civil Rights Movement. I grew up in Orlando, and I didn't realize that Martin Luther King Jr. came to St. Augustine during the Civil Rights Movement. And so that was really enjoyable. And I guess also to give you an idea of really how long it took for me to actually construct the site. I think it really took the bulk of this project was going through the interviews, listening to them, where there are transcripts, reading through transcripts, deciding which clips I wanted to make for the site. That took much, much longer than actually putting the site together. But really, I really enjoyed everything. This was, I really had a lot of fun. Okay. You're welcome. Let's see. I think, oh, you're welcome.
So let me just jump in for a question. If you're going to start a second site with Omega S, what would you do differently?
Oh, well, I think towards the end of the presentation, I really pressed how helpful and useful resource templates are. And so I think that would be one of the first things I do probably after setting up the site name, adding the pages in the navigation. I probably would take the time to do the resource templates. The first few items I added, I didn't use a resource template. And yeah, the resource templates are definitely a huge time saver. So that would be one of the first things that I make up front. Let me see. I think too, I would have probably taken more time to experiment with the themes. Again, for this project, creating the clips for the site did take the bulk of the work. And so I didn't have as much time as I would have liked to experiment with different themes. So I'd probably try to focus more on that to learn more about that aspect of Omeka S.
So I don't see more question coming in. So the last question for you is, do you have more advice for the people who want to start with Omega S?
I would say just to not be afraid to try new things. I hope in the presentation I showed how forgiving the platform can be. If you make a mistake, if you accidentally delete, a block on a page that you're creating, you can easily undo if you catch it before you hit save. The themes, you can easily change those around. And so I would say to just not be afraid to try new things. And there's so many resources. I hope this presentation was just a good base resource for you. But as I showed in the sources page, and I think we'll send out my slides with a recording of the presentation sometime next week. But there's a lot of resources for you too as well if you have any questions.
Okay, well, Jenna's going to share the site link. I would like to thank everyone who joined us here. And just as Jenna said, we're going to send out the slides and the recording as soon as we can. And again, thanks for joining us. I'm happy you've learned something about Omega S. Thank you.
Yes, thanks so much, everyone, for attending. I really hope it was helpful to you.
Thank you.